Thanks very much, Alison, and thanks, John, for the invite. I basically research climate change communications at DCU. So the more I research it, the less I understand it, basically. But if we think about communications as a process that has three elements, the building of the message, which can be a competitive process amongst different stakeholders. For instance, nature restoration law, there's a battle as to who's going to win the narrative over that. Is it going to be the environmental side, the industrial farming side, different political interests? There's a battle to establish the dominant narrative around lots of things. Then, so that's kind of pre-communicate. Then there's communication itself, like the texts, the media coverage, different press releases, different videos, whatever it might be put out to the public. How are they framed, constructed? What are the key phrases and messages that go into them? And then the last piece is how it lands with audiences. And as Oisín was saying, how it lands with different audiences depends on a lot of different variables. So these are the processes that we study. One piece of research I did do was to interview ministers and handlers, media handlers in the last Green government, if it's not too traumatic to go back to the 2011 time in government, about their communication strategies. And what I found there was that the Green Party media people and the Green Party ministers themselves didn't really think about those processes in a strategic way. My sense was somebody who comes up to politics and gets in to be a minister is already a very, very good communicator, but in a sort of natural, heuristic, ad hoc way. I'm good because I'm good. They're not thinking about these strategies about how to frame certain messages for different audiences. So I wasn't really sure we were going to be asked to speak, so I've kind of got lots of random notes about how to improve communications. There's lots of research about, you have to tailor the message for segment your audience, and you've got to go to where that audience is, whether it's on TikTok or whether it's on podcasts or wherever it is. So you cannot expect your audience to find you. You've got to find the audience. You've got to frame the message in a way that resonates with them. So you have to understand where they are. There's no point in talking to people from where you are, because where you are is, like I see my colleague Dermot Torney here, we're always saying, well, we're in the bubble. And we probably all here are in the green bubble, but most people aren't. You've got to focus on positives, as Oisín said as well, on solutions and opportunity, because talking about climate change and climate action as a sacrifice, or as that climate change is a looming disaster, it can engage people, but it can induce a certain fatalism about action. So I would be careful about that. The other thing I found, and sorry if I'm overusing my time, Alison, you can open the trapdoor any minute, that I have been involved in working with media organisations about their climate change coverage and how to kind of strengthen it and deepen it. Right, the government could fund environmental journalism. They have agreed under the Future for Media Commission report to fund local journalism like council reports and court reports. We in DCU lobbied to have environmental journalism included in that, because environmental journalism is expensive to produce. You're sending people to COP meetings, you're sending them to different conferences. You need to have somebody who's trained in it. So that's one thing that the Greens in government could do, which is to increase the climate literacy of the media themselves. Because I found in my interaction, look, climate science is a vast and fast-moving area with lots of different specialisms. So it's difficult for journalists to understand. And as a former journalist, I basically went in there because I was good at English and bad at maths. Okay, so journalists are not naturally numerous. Apologies to my colleagues here. So it's a tough. You have to kind of again, going to where they are. Where are the media on climate change? They're struggling. They're struggling to understand the science. They're struggling. You give them a peer-reviewed paper, and they have to evaluate whether that's good research design, good methodology, or what are the key findings. I think they're under pressure on this, and the more we can help them in terms of giving them climate literacy training, trying to sort of grant aid environmental coverage would be a good step. I'll finish on a little anecdote about the recent IPCC synthesis report. And I was watching the press release from somewhere in Switzerland, I can't remember where it was, live, and Peter Thorne from the Newth was speaking about it, and I sort of heard him say, the main finding of this report is that the solutions to climate change are all at our fingertips. Okay, and I thought, this is different, right? This is a very different message to the normal IPCC report, which could be summed up in "we're all going to die." So I was talking to Peter about this, and he said, yes, what happened was that the IPCC comms people had prepared the "we're all going to die" script, but that he got together with a couple of the other people on the committee, and about 5 minutes before going live on air, ripped it up and decided to go with this positive messaging. And that is kind of how it was reported. Because if you get in first and you set that narrative about positivism and solutions being available, then you set what the research calls, you become the primary definer of that issue. And if you can get in there early, you can set that narrative. So thanks very much for listening, and I'm happy to answer your questions.